Have you ever felt like your life was stuck on repeat? Like no matter what you do, nothing really changes? Well, there's a secret that could change everything for you. It's called Neville Goddard's philosophy, and it has the power to completely transform your reality. Now, this isn't about some fancy technique or expensive program. It's all about something you already have, your imagination. Yes, that's right, the same imagination you use to daydream or plan your future. But Goddard taught us how to use it in a way that can actually reshape our world. Here's the thing, if you don't change what's going on inside your head, nothing outside will change either. It's like trying to see a different reflection in the mirror without changing your own appearance. Sounds simple, right? But it means you have to face your own thoughts and beliefs. You might not like what you see at first. Some of your ideas about yourself and the world might be holding you back without you even knowing it. But if you're really ready to make a big change in your life, to create the reality you've always dreamed of, then this is exactly what you need to hear. So, who was this Neville Goddard guy anyway? Born in 1905 in Barbados, Neville Goddard wasn't always the spiritual teacher he became famous as. He started out as a dancer and actor in New York City. But his life took a turn when he discovered metaphysical teachings and had his own spiritual experiences. Goddard spent years studying and practicing what he learned, and eventually started sharing his insights with others. Goddard's main idea was pretty revolutionary for his time. He taught that our imagination is actually the creative power of the universe. In other words, what we imagine in our minds is what creates our reality. He didn't just mean this in a think positive kind of way. Goddard believed that our imagination was literally shaping the world around us all the time. This might sound a bit out there, but think about it. Everything in the human-made world started as someone's idea, right? The chair you're sitting on, the device you're reading this on, they all began in someone's imagination before they became real. Goddard just took this idea further. He said that this same principle applies to everything in our lives, from our jobs and relationships to our health and happiness. Goddard taught that we're all using this power all the time, whether we know it or not. The problem is, most of us are using it unconsciously. We're letting our fears, doubts, and old beliefs shape our reality without even realizing it. But the good news is, once we understand this power, we can start using it on purpose to create the life we want. Now, Goddard didn't just come up with these ideas out of nowhere. He studied many spiritual and philosophical traditions, including the Bible, which he interpreted in a very unique way. He saw the stories in the Bible not as historical events, but as psychological truths about human nature and the power of consciousness. One of Goddard's most famous quotes sums up his teaching pretty well. Imagination creates reality. He believed that what we assume to be true in our imagination eventually becomes true in our physical reality. This isn't about just positive thinking or wishful dreaming. Goddard taught specific techniques to make this work, which we'll get into later. But here's the really exciting part. Goddard said this power isn't just for special people or spiritual masters. It's something we all have access to all the time. We're all creating our reality all the time, whether we realize it or not. The key is learning how to do it consciously and deliberately. Imagine if you could create any reality you wanted just by using your imagination in the right way. Sounds pretty amazing, right? Well, that's exactly what Goddard taught was possible, and the best part is, you don't need any special tools or skills to do it. You just need to understand how it works and practice using your imagination in a new way. Now, you might be thinking, if it's this simple, why isn't everyone doing it? Well, that's where the challenging part comes in. To really use this power, we have to face our own thoughts and beliefs. We have to be willing to question everything we think we know about ourselves and the world. And that can be pretty scary. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself you're not good enough, or smart enough, or lucky enough to have what you want? How many times have you looked at the world and thought, that's just the way things are? These thoughts and beliefs are shaping your reality right now, whether you like it or not. But here's the good news. Once you understand how this works, you can start to change those thoughts and beliefs. You can start to use your imagination to create the reality you really want, instead of just accepting whatever comes your way. This isn't about denying reality or pretending everything is perfect when it's not. It's about understanding that your inner world, your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs is the foundation for your outer world. And when you change that inner world, the outer world has to change too. Now, this might sound a bit like magic, but Goddard insisted it was actually very scientific. He believed that consciousness, our awareness, and imagination was the fundamental reality of the universe. Everything else, including the physical world we see around us, comes from that consciousness. This idea isn't as far out as it might seem. In fact, some modern physicists have theories that sound pretty similar. They talk about how consciousness might be fundamental to the universe, and how the act of observing something actually affects what we see. But you don't need to understand quantum physics to use Goddard's teachings. All you need to know is that your imagination is powerful, more powerful than you might have ever realized. And when you learn to use it the right way, you can start to see real changes in your life. Let's dive deeper into how Goddard viewed imagination. He didn't see it as just daydreaming or fantasizing. For Goddard, imagination was the very essence of reality. He taught that what we imagine in our minds is actually more real and more powerful than what we see with our eyes. This might sound strange at first, but think about it. Everything you see around you, your phone, your furniture, even the buildings outside, all started as someone's imagination before it became physical. Goddard believed that this same principle applies to every aspect of our lives. Your job, your relationships, your health, your wealth, all of these are shaped by what you imagine to be true. The catch is, most of us are imagining unconsciously. We're letting our old habits, fears, and doubts shape our imagination without even realizing it. But here's where it gets exciting. Once you understand this power, you can start using it on purpose. Instead of letting your imagination run on autopilot, you can consciously direct it towards what you want to create in your life. It's like being the director of your own movie, where you get to decide what happens next. Now, you might be thinking, but I see things in my life that I definitely didn't imagine. And you're right. Goddard didn't say that everything in our lives is there because we consciously imagined it. Instead, he taught that our overall state of consciousness, including our beliefs, assumptions, and habitual thoughts, creates our reality. So even things we think we don't want might be there because of some deeper belief or assumption we're not aware of. This is why Goddard put so much emphasis on changing our inner world. He knew that trying to change things on the outside without changing our inner state was like trying to change our reflection in the mirror without changing ourselves. It just doesn't work. But when we change our inner world, our imagination and beliefs, the outer world has to follow suit. One of Goddard's most powerful teachings was the concept of living from the end. This isn't about living like there's no tomorrow. It's about living as if your desire has already come true. Sounds a bit odd, right? But stick with me, because this idea is a game changer. Here's how it works. Instead of focusing on what you want and feeling the lack of it, you imagine that you already have what you want. You feel the feelings you would feel if your desire was already real. You see the world through the eyes of the person who already has what you're wishing for. For example, let's say you want a new job. Instead of constantly thinking about how much you dislike your current job or worrying about whether you'll find a new one, you would imagine that you already have your dream job. You would feel the satisfaction of doing work you love. You would imagine the details of your new workplace, your new colleagues, even the commute to your new job. The key here is to make it as real as possible in your mind. Goddard taught that if you can make it real in your imagination and truly feel as if it's already happened, then it must happen in your physical reality too. It's like placing an order with the universe. Once you've placed the order in your imagination, you can relax, knowing it's on its way. Now, this doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing in the physical world. Goddard wasn't against taking action, but he taught that the most effective action comes from this state of already having what you want. When you live from the end, you naturally take inspired action that leads you towards your goal. Living from the end takes practice. At first, it might feel like you're just pretending or lying to yourself. But remember, Goddard taught that your imagination is more real than your current physical reality. So even if it feels like pretending at first, keep at it. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. Now let's talk about one of Goddard's most important teachings, the law of assumption. This law states that whatever you assume to be true will be true in your experience. It's like the law of gravity. It's always working, whether you believe in it or not. You might have heard of the law of attraction, which says that like attracts like. The law of assumption is similar, but it goes a step further. It's not just about attracting things that match your thoughts. It's about your entire reality conforming to what you assume to be true. Here's how it works. Whatever you deeply assume to be true about yourself, others, or the world will be reflected back to you in your experiences. If you assume that people are generally kind, you'll notice more kindness around you. If you assume that money is hard to come by, you'll find evidence of that in your life. The power of this law is that it works on everything, not just specific goals or desires. It shapes your entire reality. And the best part? You can choose your assumptions. You're not stuck with the assumptions you've had in the past. This is different from just positive thinking. It's not about trying to force yourself to think happy thoughts all the time. Instead, it's about consciously choosing what you want to assume is true, and then living as if that assumption is already a fact. For example, if you want to be more confident, you would assume, "I am a confident person," as a fact. You would think, feel, and act as if this were already true. You wouldn't try to become confident. You would assume you already are confident and live from that assumption. This might sound simple, but it can be challenging. Our old assumptions are often deeply ingrained, and it takes practice to change them. But Goddard taught that with persistent practice, we can change our assumptions and, in doing so, change our entire reality. Remember, the law of assumption is always working. Every experience you have is a result of your assumptions. So why not choose assumptions that create the life you want? It's like having the power to rewrite the rules of your own life. And that's exactly what Goddard taught we all have the ability to do. Now that we understand the power of imagination and assumption, let's talk about how to put these ideas into practice. One of Goddard's most powerful techniques is called SATs, which stands for state akin to sleep. This is a method for impressing your desires on your subconscious mind, which Goddard believed was the key to manifesting your desires in the physical world. SATs involves reaching a state of deep relaxation, similar to the drowsy state you experience just before falling asleep or just after waking up. In this state, your conscious mind is relaxed and your subconscious is more open to suggestion. This is when you can most effectively plant the seeds of your desires. Here's how to practice SATs. First, find a comfortable position where you won't be disturbed. Close your eyes and take deep breaths until you feel relaxed. Then, imagine a scene that implies your desire has already been fulfilled. Make it as vivid and real as possible. Use all your senses. What do you see, hear, feel, smell, and taste in this scene? For example, if your desire is to own a house, you might imagine yourself holding the keys to your new home, feeling the weight of them in your hand. You might picture yourself walking through the front door, smelling the fresh paint, hearing your footsteps echo in your new living room. The key is to make the scene feel as real as possible and to feel the emotions you would feel if this were really happening. Feel the joy, the satisfaction, the gratitude. Repeat this scene over and over until it feels completely natural and real to you. Goddard recommended doing this practice just before falling asleep at night. This way, you carry the feeling of your desire fulfilled into your sleep, allowing it to sink deep into your subconscious mind. Remember, the goal isn't to force anything to happen. It's about allowing yourself to feel as if your desire is already real. The more real it feels to you, the more easily it will manifest in your physical reality. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: doubts and fears. When you start practicing Goddard's teachings, you might find that old doubts and fears start popping up. This is normal and even expected. After all, you're challenging beliefs you might have held for a long time. You might hear that inner voice saying things like, "This is too good to be true," or "Who am I to think I can have this?" These doubts are just old patterns of thinking, and Goddard had specific advice for dealing with them. First, remember that doubts and fears are just thoughts. They're not reality unless you accept them as such. When you notice a doubt, don't fight it or try to push it away. Instead, simply observe it without judgment. Then gently return your focus to your desired end result. Goddard taught that persistence is key. Keep focusing on your desire, keep living from the end even when doubts arise. Over time, as you see evidence of your new reality manifesting, these doubts will naturally fade away. Another powerful tool for overcoming doubts is revision. This technique involves reimagining past events in a way that supports your desired reality. If you catch yourself dwelling on a past failure or disappointment, take a moment to reimagine that event with a positive outcome. This helps to reprogram your subconscious mind and build faith in your ability to create your reality. Remember, your imagination is more powerful than your current circumstances. No matter what your past experiences have been, you have the power to create a new reality starting right now. To really drive home the power of Goddard's teachings, let's look at some real-life success stories. These are people who have applied Goddard's methods and seen remarkable changes in their lives. Take Sarah, for example. She had been struggling with her weight for years, trying every diet and exercise program she could find. Nothing seemed to work long-term. Then, she discovered Goddard's teachings. Instead of focusing on losing weight, she started imagining herself as already healthy and fit. She would fall asleep each night, feeling the joy and confidence of being at her ideal weight. At first, nothing seemed to change. But Sarah persisted. She kept living from the end, feeling as if she was already healthy and fit. Gradually, she noticed her habits changing. She found herself naturally drawn to healthier foods and enjoying exercise more. Within a year, she had reached her ideal weight without the struggles she had experienced before. Then there's Michael, who used Goddard's techniques to transform his career. He was stuck in a job he hated, but felt too insecure to look for something better. After learning about the law of assumption, he began to assume that he was confident and successful in his dream career. Every night, Michael would imagine himself working at a job he loved, feeling fulfilled and appreciated. He would feel the satisfaction of doing work that mattered to him. Within a few months, an unexpected opportunity arose. A company in his dream field was hiring, and Michael felt confident enough to apply. He got the job and now says he can hardly believe how perfectly it matches what he had imagined. These stories might sound too good to be true, but they're just a few examples of what's possible when you apply Goddard's teachings consistently. The key is persistence and faith. Both Sarah and Michael kept focusing on their desired end result, even when their current reality didn't match up. And eventually, their outer world changed to match their inner assumptions. As we wrap up our exploration of Neville Goddard's philosophy, let's recap the main points we've covered. We've learned that our imagination is the creative power that shapes our reality. We've discovered the importance of living from the end and assuming the feeling of our wish fulfilled. We've explored practical techniques like SATs and revision, and we've seen how real people have used these methods to transform their lives. Remember, the power to change your reality lies within you. It's not about forcing change through sheer willpower, but about changing your inner world, your assumptions, beliefs, and mental images. As you do this, you'll find your outer world naturally shifting to match. This journey of conscious creation isn't always easy. You'll face doubts and challenges along the way. But with persistence and faith, you can overcome these obstacles and create the life you truly desire. Goddard's teachings offer a profound shift in how we view ourselves and our world. They remind us that we are not victims of circumstances, but powerful creators of our own reality. This knowledge comes with responsibility, but also with incredible freedom and potential. So, as you go forward from here, I encourage you to experiment with these ideas. Start small if you need to. Pick one area of your life and apply Goddard's techniques consistently. See what changes unfold. Remember, your imagination is the workshop where you can shape your future. Use it wisely, use it often, and watch as your world transforms before your eyes. You have the power to unlock the secret of your own consciousness and transform your reality. The only question is, what will you create?